You're listening to the Healthy Creative Ministry podcast with Matt Curtis. This is the podcast that helps you take your creative ministry from wherever you are today to healthy and effective.
What does it mean to be human in communication? One of the things that I have noticed over the last several years is this trend toward removing humanity in many of the different interactions that we have in our churches. I saw this over a decade ago. So this isn't just a very recent problem, but because of things like artificial intelligence, I'm seeing the pace of this problem increase. Really, it's speeding up. And so I wanted to address this question of what does it mean to be human in our communication? Because I think that we have the potential to be a very significant human place as the church. But we won't be that if we're doing what everyone else is doing, which is just giving away decision-making to other things. And so I don't want to just throw AI under the bus. I've actually been wrestling with AI for a long time now in terms of wanting to put together an episode. It's such a heavy subject, or it's really just, there's so much going on that I have yet to really be able to kind of catalog my thoughts on it. Most of my thoughts aren't about the actual tools themselves. I think that they have a great place in the workplace. I think that they can be an asset and a value. I have used them personally. I use them sparingly. But I do think that they can be a valuable piece of the way that we work and the way that we communicate. However, I think they also present a real problem if we don't use them well. And that's really what I want to dig into a little bit here is what does it mean for us to protect the humanity in the way that we interact with others, in the way that people interact with our churches? I think that that's very important. And to give you a little bit of context here, we're talking probably 15 years ago now. I'm having a conversation with a ministry leader, and they basically are telling me that they want a postcard or a flyer, printed handout, and they want that to replace any in-person conversations with people interested in their event. So this isn't just an informational piece. This is a remove relationship from my plate piece. So I understand that there's a role for this. If you have an event that's coming and somebody has a question about when it starts, it's really helpful to have a postcard or a promotional piece that says, hey, this is when it starts. So I'm not saying that we should not promote anything and everything should be personal, human interaction. But what we were doing is we were making it nearly impossible to figure out who we should even talk to if we have questions. And I began noticing as I looked over the whole landscape of all of the different things that we're promoting and talking about and communicating for the people of our church, there were very few ways to get in touch with an actual person. It sort of felt like when you have a problem with a product and you try to call and you're sent from one department to another department to another department through all these different automated messages. It's like, press 7 if this is your issue. It's like, okay, I did it. And then all of a sudden it hangs up on you. And it's the most frustrating thing. You're like, I'm a human being. I bought this product. You're a business. You should stand by it. Why can't I talk to a human? In fact, there was an era where it was so bad. There was actually a website where it was basically a guide on how to get to a human. And so what it would do is it would list the business, and then it would tell you, these are the numbers that you need to press in this sequence, and that'll route you to an operator or to a person that you can have a conversation with. And so this was a problem that I was seeing, is that we were basically dodging relationships. We were dodging human conversations, and we were using our communication methods to make that happen. Part of why this becomes so complicated is because we don't see this as a cause and effect problem. And what I mean by that is, if you don't promote an event at all, that's the thing that happens because of that. Your result is that nobody's going to know about it. It's usually pretty clear. So if we didn't promote, or we did a bad job of promoting, we understand what the repercussions will be. But the problem that I saw with this approach was that it was very subtle And it was almost cultural. So what was happening is people would start getting frustrated with the church, but kind of abstractly. Well, the church doesn't care about me. Church doesn't know about my needs. They don't want to get to know my needs. They're not open to helping me. I don't even know who the pastors are. Like, these kinds of questions emerged, and they weren't questions from a grumpy congregation, and they weren't the result of a bunch of mean pastors. It was because in the way that we communicated, we were actually saying more by what we were communicating than just the words. We were saying there's never a pathway to talk to us. I just want to emphasize the importance of us protecting our humanity in an era where that's going to be harder and harder to do, or another way to say it, it's going to be easier and easier for us to give that away. So some of the things that I want to kind of point out, they're sort of silly examples, but one of the things that I see often is people will post something on Facebook and they'll say, hey, I just want to wish my cousin a happy birthday. They're not on Facebook, but I wanted to wish him a happy birthday. Okay, just pause for a second and just think about what that is, what's happening there. I may as well just go in a corner of a room and talk to my house plant and say, oh, hey, my cousin's birthday is happening. I just want to wish him a happy birthday. Why would you whisper that to a plant? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you share that on Facebook if the recipient, the person that you're wanting to wish the happy birthday, if they're not there? It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, to me, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Why are we saying these things not to people? Call your cousin and say happy birthday. Write him a letter. Send him a card in the mail. Shoot him a text message. Like, actually communicate to the person. And I know that sounds like a silly example. I was like, wow, Matt's really grumpy about this. It's an indicator that we are losing our humanity because we're not even thinking about the fact that we're not wishing the actual person a happy birthday. We're just announcing it off to nothingness. Another thing that I see, and this tends to coincide with some of these, major national disasters that happen, these kind of catastrophes. The one that really jumps out to me is when in Japan, that nuclear reactor was having problems. I don't know if it melted down or leaked into the ocean, whatever the details were. It's been a long enough period of time where I don't remember all the details. But I remember a whole bunch of artists rose up and created posters. And they sold posters to solve the problem. We think that making a poster is going to solve a problem. And the reality is that it's not going to solve a problem. It's just a poster. It's just a design that is printed out. And it doesn't have any substantial impact on the actual people that are being hurt. And it's actually similar to this post on Facebook. The target audience, the right person to talk to here, we're not even talking to them. And it's the same with this poster idea. We're not even helping them. You want to help them? Go there. Or fund a organization that's actually doing work there. But when we create these, posters or these songs, it's such an indirect way of trying to be helpful. And so I look at that as a stepping away. It's us moving away from our humanity a little bit. And it's instead just moving into this abstract ideology. You're not helping the situation when you do that, not substantially. And then most recently, the thing that I'm seeing, I actually saw this question this week. We're asking AI what people think instead of asking the actual people. Why are we trusting artificial intelligence to answer this question for us? Have we become so lazy that we can't ask people what they're thinking or what they believe? Have we become so unwilling to be uncomfortable that we can't have conversations with people who are outside of our comfort bubbles? The question that I saw asked recently is, what are people who don't go to church, what are the questions that they have about God? And I'm thinking to myself, why don't you ask people that you know who don't know God? Why don't you ask people that you know that don't go to church? What are we doing just asking AI for these things? And I know the argument is that, it saves so much time. Well, what's the point of the time that we have if not to leverage the relationships that God has given us for the purpose of ministry? I don't understand what we're being efficient for. And I think that's probably the root issue that I struggle with so much with this. As we're giving away humanity and becoming more efficient, what are we becoming more efficient for? What's the point? What's the goal? Is it to make more money? Is it to produce more widgets for our business? Is it to be able to have more events that we don't have time to actually meaningfully attend and we're just, churning out more and more events? I don't know what the point is of us becoming so efficient. And I think that's where I see us losing our humanity a little bit. And so one of the things I want to kind of emphasize here, there's a couple ideas that I think are really important for us as communicators. And the reason that this is such an important conversation for us, for you, for me, is because we are the bridge between these worlds. We are the bridge between the ministry space and then communicating to the congregation. And so I want to bring these things up with you because you have the opportunity to lead in a good way here. So the first thing that I want to challenge you with or encourage you with, you may be like, I'm already on this page. Fantastic. Effective communication should point people to human relationships as quickly as possible. Don't use your communication tools as a way to avoid human interaction. That will not help your ministry. That will not help the impact of your ministry. And eventually, it will create a culture around your ministry that is not good. It's not helpful. It's not healthy. And ultimately, it's not effective for the purpose of ministry. God has chosen to work through people. And so I don't want you to lose that idea. I understand that there's a lot of efficiency out there. I understand that you can do a video one time and 1,000 people can watch it. I understand that. But please do not ignore the importance of human interaction when it comes to the way that we're communicating. So that's the first idea. Effective communication should point to human relationship as quickly as possible. We want people to connect with humans. That's what we want. We don't want them to just sign up for an event. We want them to connect with somebody. We want them to have a human connection, a person that they feel connected to, a relationship that begins to form. That's what we want, because that is where ministry happens, and that is where lasting ministry happens. The second thing I want to bring up, most people aren't all digital. I know that may be shocking, but the reality is that most people are not all digital. And so while I'm a big fan of apps and websites and social media strategies and all these kinds of things, most people do not live exclusively in a digital world. So don't make your church exclusively in a digital world. Now, I know there's some exceptions in the sense that, there are churches that are 100% online, and there are, Twitch streaming and gamer focused and all these kinds of things. Those are outliers. And I don't have a problem with them being outliers. What I have an issue with is when we, kind of the more traditional church, where we have gatherings on a weekend, we assume that we should be getting rid of everything print and physical in favor of digital only. And a lot of times our argument is that it's easier for us. We're not in ministry to build as easy of a job as possible. We're in ministry to serve the congregation well, for the purpose of helping them grow in their relationship with God and be equipped and prepared to be able to minister effectively to a lost world. Love God, love others. Those are the goals of ministry. Make disciples. Those are the goals of our ministries. And so the question doesn't come up, how easily can I do that? The question should be, how effectively can I do that? And so I just want to give you that perspective that most people are not all digital. And so whatever it is that you're doing, don't just go only digital, because that will not be the most effective way to help your congregation. And then the last thing is just a perspective on the value of digital. Digital is really easy, but it's also shallow. Many years ago, I was doing some talks on social media. I have a book called #Wisdom. And I was going around to different student ministry departments and men's retreats and women's retreats and those kinds of things, and sharing some of what the landscape of social media looks like. One of the things that came up in my research was a study talking about the depth of digital relationships. And one of the things that they found was digital relationships were really easy, but they were really shallow. And the reason that they were shallow was because in a digital relationship, you maintain all control. So if I'm chatting with you or if I'm texting with you and things get uncomfortable, I can simply mute the conversation. I can leave the chat room. I can log off of the game. I have complete power in that relationship. But if we go and we meet at a coffee shop and you're presenting some ideas to me that are challenging, or maybe I just flat don't agree with, it's harder for me to just get up and leave. There's some social norms that kind of govern those types of interactions. And what happens in that is that you're forced to engage a little bit differently because you can't just mute the other person. You don't have control over silencing them. And even as I say that, doesn't that sound unhealthy? I want to protect my ability to mute people. I don't like that at all. That's not the ground in which healthy relationships grow. And so that's my challenge, with the digital space. I think it's fantastic to leverage it. I'm posting content on YouTube again, and it's really focused on, it's basically daily devotional. I'm sharing some of the things that really strike me as I'm reading through the Bible in a year. And the reason I'm shifting my content that way there is because that's a piece of what we need to be reminded of as pursuers of communications or executors of communications in the church. We need to remember who God is. We need to remember what God's word has to say. And so a lot of the content that I'm creating is sort of drifting that way. How is it that we can be intentional with these real life relationships and not be afraid of them, push people toward them, encourage those, and then also leverage digital, understanding that this may be the first stepping stone of a path that leads to in-person, real-life relationships. That's great. Use it that way. Leverage it. Take advantage of it. But ultimately, we want to try to move people not into attendance or logging on or us seeing that their IP address connected. We want to move them into relationship. That's the goal of what we're doing. And so while digital is easy, it's also shallow. So I hope that these are some helpful thoughts. At some levels, I think that they may be challenging. I know for me, as I spent many years in the trenches of church communications, I felt like all I heard was the other side of this. All I heard was the potential. All I heard was if you're not on digital, then you don't care about the lost. All I heard about was if you're not leveraging social media to the max, then do you even care if people go to hell? Those were the messages that were communicated to me. And I just want to tell you, that's not true. The opposite is true. We're becoming obsessed with digital, but I have not heard enough stories of success to justify the energy and the resources that we are investing instead of investing them in real life relationships. I just haven't seen it. And I've been in this space for a long time, and I have been actively wanting to pursue this digital space. I launched an online ministry at our church. I pursued it really, really hard and deeply. I've done a ton of thinking about it. And here's the problem I keep coming back to. I just don't see results. Yes, I hear the anecdotal story. Yes, I've heard stories of people who, whatever. My own family. My wife has chronic health issues and is not able to attend all the time. And there was a season in particular where those issues were really extreme. And I remember we went months in between visits to church because of that. Online ministry let her attend regularly. That was huge for me and huge for us as a family. Incredible, incredible, valuable asset. But those stories are rare and they are not enough, at least the ones I'm not hearing enough to justify this full-bore, digital-only type of approach. And so my hope is that as you hear this, you're challenged a little bit to find ways to be intentionally human in how you communicate, to find ways to be intentionally human in your call to action. It might mean that you're a little bit less efficient. It might mean that you keep those physical sign-up forms a little bit longer than you wanted to. It might mean that a table in the back is the best way for somebody to sign up for your event. Offer credit cards, sure. Offer online signups, sure. But make human relationships and human kind of connection a part of what it looks like to become a deeper piece of the congregation or your church family. If I'm coming for the first time, help me know people as a next step, to connect with people throughout the process, not just sign up for some event randomly and, I just show up and nobody knows who I am. In introducing the human connection part of the communication process is a really important part of long-term successful ministry, especially as we see things like artificial intelligence become easier and easier and more accessible. It's going to be very tempting for us to shift our energy toward, let's just ask the robot what it has to say about my congregation. Nope. Get to know your congregation. Get to know the people that are in there, because that is the place that ministry is happening, is in those human relationships. And that's how I would answer the question, what does it mean to be human in communication?
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Healthy Creative Ministry Podcast. This podcast is just one of the ways Lunchtime Heroes can help you build a healthy creative ministry in your church. Stay up to date on the latest by signing up for the Creative Bites email at lunchtimeheroes.co.